Tonight I'll be Ophelia for row G, C12, and for the balcony that's been empty for 30 years, and for every dream that died quietly in the dark. 26-year-old Briar Ashton's whisper echoed through the abandoned Riverside Theater as she stood alone on the dusty stage, her janitor's uniform exchanged for simple rehearsal clothes, the ghost light her only audience. It was 11 p.m., 3 hours after she'd finished mopping floors and scrubbing bathrooms in the office building next door, 2 hours before she'd need to sleep before her early morning shift. But this time, these stolen hours on this forgotten stage were hers. She'd been coming here for 8 months now, ever since the theater's elderly manager, touched by her request to just practice sometimes, had given her a key with trembling hands and tears in his eyes, saying, "An empty theater is a tragedy. Fill it with your voice, child, even if no one hears." But someone was hearing. Someone had been hearing for months. 33-year-old Sterling Calloway sat motionless in the darkness of the back row, row Z, seat 1, exactly where he'd positioned himself every Tuesday and Thursday night for the past 6 months. He'd purchased the derelict theater building as an investment property, planning renovation, but had delayed demolition when he'd heard an extraordinary voice echoing through the empty space during his initial site inspection. What he'd discovered was this young woman, this janitor, performing full theatrical monologues with such raw, devastating talent that it had stopped him cold. So he'd returned, and returned, and returned, watching silently from the shadows, witnessing dedication and artistry that humbled him despite his own success as one of the nation's most respected independent film directors.
What Sterling didn't know yet, what he'd only recently begun researching, was that Briar Ashton hadn't always been a janitor performing for empty chairs. 2 years ago, she'd been a rising star in regional theater and independent films, praised by critics for emotional depth that transcended her youth, beloved by audiences for performances that felt lived rather than acted. But industry politics had destroyed that trajectory. Jealous co-stars had whispered that she was difficult. Directors had been quietly discouraged from casting her. Scenes had been cut, scripts altered, opportunities withdrawn. Not through dramatic confrontation, but through insidious, quiet sabotage that left no fingerprints but demolished a career nonetheless. Briar had never defended herself publicly, never fought back, never named names or played victim. She'd simply continued working, taking smaller roles, then background work, then finally accepting that survival required abandoning professional acting entirely. Now she cleaned buildings by night and performed Shakespeare for empty seats, maintaining her craft in secret because the art mattered more than the audience, because discipline mattered more than recognition, because she'd learned that true talent was what you practiced when absolutely no one was watching. What Briar also didn't share, what pride and privacy kept hidden, was that she still taught free acting classes to underprivileged children every Saturday, still performed at hospital wards for sick kids, still volunteered at community centers, still did charity work that would have generated social media glory if she documented it. But she didn't, because kindness performed for applause wasn't kindness, it was transaction.
Her parents, her father a literature professor, her mother running a small bakery, had taught her that dignity existed in honest work, regardless of recognition. Most actors performed for validation, for applause, for the drug of recognition. But Briar performed because the art demanded it, because Ophelia's grief deserved to be honored, even if no living soul bore witness, because discipline and dedication couldn't be divorced from outcome without destroying the work's integrity. He'd begun researching her history, quietly interviewing people who'd worked with her, discovering the truth about the political sabotage. Every person who'd actually worked directly with Briar described the same qualities: exceptional talent, unfailing professionalism, genuine kindness even toward those who'd betrayed her, zero ego or diva behavior. The difficult reputation was fabrication born from threatened mediocrity confronting actual excellence. What Sterling also learned, what moved him profoundly, was that Breyer's father attended every small performance she gave, sitting quietly in audiences of 15 or 20 people, never missing a show despite the roles being unpaid or minimally compensated. This was a family that understood art as vocation rather than vehicle for fame. But Sterling didn't reveal himself. Not yet. He needed to understand if her dedication was consistent or performance for some imagined observer. So he watched. For 6 months. Through monologues and scene work. Through nights she cried from exhaustion but continued anyway. Through evenings she whispered to empty seats. You deserve my best work. Empty or full, you deserve my best.
What Sterling was witnessing, what he'd spent his career seeking, was the rarest thing in his industry. Authentic artistry untainted by ego. Talent maintained through discipline rather than opportunity. Character demonstrated through choices made in absolute solitude when no reward could possibly follow. His own life had taught him to value such authenticity. His parents' deaths, his wife's betrayal and departure, the loneliness of raising his 4-year-old daughter Clover alone, these experiences had stripped away his tolerance for performative emotion and manufactured depth. He needed truth. And this woman performing Ophelia for empty chairs embodied truth in its purest form. 6 months into his silent observation, Sterling made a decision, but not the decision Breyer would expect. He didn't offer her a role. He didn't swoop in as savior. Instead, he did something more meaningful. He quietly reached out to directors he trusted, people whose judgment and integrity matched his own, and told them simply, "There's an actress you need to see. Her name is Breyer Ashton. Don't Google her, just watch her work." He arranged for these directors to accidentally discover her teaching children, to happen upon her small community theater performances, to witness her talent in contexts where political reputation couldn't overshadow actual ability. And slowly, carefully, opportunities began emerging. Small roles in independent films, supporting parts in respected projects, work that valued craft over celebrity. Breyer didn't know Sterling was orchestrating this quiet rehabilitation. She thought she was simply experiencing better luck, that her persistence was finally being noticed. And in a way, she was right. Her persistence was being noticed by someone who understood that true talent revealed itself through dedication maintained when no audience watches, when no reward seems possible, when continuing requires faith in the work itself, rather than hope for recognition. A year after Sterling first sat in that darkened theater, Breyer received an offer, a supporting role in a major independent film directed by Sterling Calloway. She accepted with trembling hands, researching this legendary director whose work she'd admired for years, never imagining he'd been watching her rehearse in secret for months. Their first meeting was scheduled at the theater, neutral ground he'd suggested, rather than his intimidating office. When Breyer arrived, Sterling was sitting in row Z, seat 1, the exact location he'd occupied dozens of times. "This is my favorite seat in this theater," Sterling said quietly as Breyer approached. "The acoustics are perfect. You can hear every breath, every pause, every moment of truth or falsity. I bought this building months ago, planning renovation, but I kept delaying because every Tuesday and Thursday night someone performed here, someone extraordinary." Breyer froze, understanding flooding through her. You were watching?" "For 6 months," Sterling admitted. "Not as manipulation or test. I genuinely needed to understand if you were real, if the dedication you showed when you thought no one was watching matched the talent I'd been told you possessed before politics destroyed your career." Tears filled Breyer's eyes, not from embarrassment, but from the profound validation of being truly seen. "I didn't know anyone. I just needed to practice, to stay sharp, to honor the work even when the work didn't honor me back." "That's exactly why you're real," Sterling said gently. "Most actors perform for applause. You performed for empty chairs, because Ophelia's grief deserved your best, regardless of audience size. That kind of integrity, that commitment to craft over recognition,
It's the rarest thing I've ever witnessed. What followed wasn't overnight stardom, but something more valuable: steady, earned, professional rehabilitation. Sterling's film showcased Breyer's talent to audiences ready to judge work rather than reputation. Critics noticed. Respectful offers followed. And slowly, carefully, over years rather than months, Breyer rebuilt a career on foundation of genuine ability rather than political favor. But the transformation went beyond professional. Sterling and Breyer developed profound mutual respect. Two people who'd both lost much, both understood that character was forged in solitude. Both valued authentic connection over performative relationship. Sterling's daughter Clover adored Breyer, and watching them together reminded Sterling that kindness and talent could coexist. That success hadn't corrupted someone tested by failure. 3 years after that first film, Breyer stood on stage at a major awards ceremony accepting recognition for her performance in Sterling's latest work. And instead of the typical thank you speech, she said something unexpected. 3 years ago, I performed Ophelia's mad scene for empty chairs in an abandoned theater because I believed the work mattered even when no one was watching. What I didn't know was that someone was watching, not to judge or exploit, but to truly see whether my dedication was real. Director Sterling Calloway sat in darkness for months, witnessing my practice, evaluating whether I valued craft over recognition. That kind of patient observation, that willingness to find talent in janitors performing for ghost lights rather than celebrities performing for cameras, that changed my life. She paused, tears streaming. But more importantly, it taught me that we're never truly alone in our efforts. Every honest attempt, every moment we choose integrity over convenience, every time we give our best to empty rooms, someone somewhere notices. Maybe not immediately, maybe not obviously, but real dedication leaves light even in darkness. Thank you, Sterling, for watching when I didn't know you were there, for seeing worth in work that brought no immediate reward, for teaching me that success earned slowly through discipline lasts longer than fame gained quickly through politics.
Backstage, Sterling found her. You performed for empty chairs because you believed Ophelia deserved your best regardless of audience. That told me everything about your character. Most people save their talent for when it benefits them. You gave yours freely to silence and darkness. That's what makes you extraordinary. Breyer smiled through tears. And you watched in silence for months, never interfering, just observing whether my dedication was authentic. You could have offered immediate opportunity, swept in as savior. Instead, you waited, tested, made sure I was real before investing in me. That patience, that integrity, it's as rare as any talent. Because true dedication reveals itself in solitude, in abandoned theaters after midnight, in monologues delivered to empty seats, in craft maintained when no audience watches and no reward seems possible. We never know who might be sitting in darkness bearing witness to our persistence, who might see our discipline and character and choose to invest not in who we pretend to be for cameras, but in who we actually are when absolutely no one is keeping score. That's when we prove what truly matters. Not recognition, but the work itself. Not applause, but integrity. Not fame, but the courage to continue perfecting our craft in empty rooms, trusting that real talent, combined with genuine character, eventually finds its audience. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.